And we're hot, which means we're live. Welcome, everybody, to America Disclosing Uncensored. This is the Dark Radio Network Project, where paranormal, conspiracy, encrypted, and everything else come to life. My guest today is Maxim Furek. And if I said that wrong, I'll say it as Furek. Is it Furek or Furek?
No, it's Furek. Yeah, it's Maxim Furek, and Furek, of course, is Czechoslovakian. So, Furek.
Yeah,
You said it right.
Okay, great. So, a former rock journalist, but still stays with it. Psychologist, also in the past, correct? Where you helped people with drug addictions and so forth. You're a real good guy with a great heart. Now a book author studying the last 9 years into these weird things that he writes about. He's a speaker at conferences now, also being invited everywhere and onto everybody's platform. His books are The Coal Region Hoodoo, Flying Saucer, Esoteric, and The Lost Tribes of Bigfoot. Next, what's next? Ghost towns? I think you already talked about them. Now, let's hit a little bit of everything, but let's open up with the fact that the book, because everybody's thinking, okay, there's going to be a lot of answers into the Lost Tribes. How did he find them? How did you research it down and so forth? Are they myth or are they lore? Or are they stories? How would you best describe what this new venture in your new book and its title?
Yeah, probably all of the above. When we talk about the paranormal, the supernatural, we're talking about something that's outside of the realm of science. And what we want to do is, I think all of us, and whether it's the paranormal or the spiritual, we want to bring it a little bit closer to that scientific reality to figure it out. And I always use the example of gravity. You see an apple fall, and it's cause and effect. The effect is the apple is falling, and we know that the cause is it's Newton's theory of relativity. That things fall. So that's an easy one. But when we see lights in the sky, when we see pulsing things that makes our cars stop, when we see cryptids, and dogmen out in the woods, we can't explain what that is. It may have a scientific basis. There may be a scientific rationale, but at this point we don't know. So we just leave all that stuff into a realm known as the paranormal. So again, a lot of us, people like you and I, Michael, are looking at these things and trying to put them into a slot, a genre, a category to try to get closer to the truth. So what I do in the Lost Tribes of Bigfoot, and again, there's just a little bit of background, with the Bigfooters, there's two different camps. You have the guys that are going out there in the woods looking for flesh and blood. They look for the cryptid, they smell it, they do the wood knocks, they see the tree structures, they hear different things, they see the footprint. So there's some information there's some evidence there that even though the scientific community doesn't really approve of it, we don't have a body and we don't have DNA, but still there's things there, like J. Allen Hynek said, that really you can't just turn your head and say it's a hoax, because there's too many things, too many elements of high strangeness that are there with these Bigfooters looking for flesh and blood. On the other hand, there's guys like me that sometimes they call woo or woo-woo, or I've been called Dr. Woo, but we're the guys that look at the other explanations. And I say, and this is my premise, my jumping off point, if it's not flesh and blood, then what is it? And from there, you go on to things like the interdimensional theory. And that's something that Einstein has talked about and wrote about with his wormhole theory back in the 30s. Jacques Vallée, John Keel, a whole bunch of people have underscored that, have touted that as the truth, that it's interdimensional. You have mass hallucinations. And in my book, I talk about all these things and the Lost Tribes of Bigfoot. But the other one, too, that we need to go and just take a look at is Carl Jung's theory of the collective unconscious, that just maybe we have residue in our DNA all the way back to our caveman ancestors that we have in our amygdala today, that when we go into an alley and see something that's threatening, it goes through our brain, it goes into the amygdala where we have all of our memory banks, and we look at that shape that's in the alley or out in the woods and try to determine, is it friend or foe? Do I got to fight or run away or what? And again, this is all genetic DNA from way back when. And, it's more than just a theory, but it's something that we need to take a look at when we're looking at reasons why and what is this. So, I'd take a look at all of those things. Again, a lot of the flesh and blood Sasquatch seekers don't like to talk about that. But then again, there's war going on in Bigfoot land, even as the scientific community has a lot of condescension for the people that are searching for Bigfoot, and they don't allow us don't give us a seat at the table, and don't give us a whole lot of respect, and they think that we're just a bunch of silly, cultists, and so that part I really resent, and I do everything I can to sort of legitimize, this whole thing with the cryptids through a scientific academic lens. So if anything, that's what I try to bring to the whole genre.
With all the shows that I've done with you, and I want to mention that to everybody. If you missed any of the shows, I did Chasing Prophecy. We hit like 800,000 listeners on the radio that night. Go back into some of my old files. You'll see Max was there, how great of a person and how he is and brings his intelligence to the paper through the fingers and keyboards that when he starts to write. But what I'd like to do, and I'm not the guy on the other side of the fence here. I'm not.
Okay.
But we do have the things that we know as the Pharaoh man. I'm just saying. And then we have the people in the woods who worked by signals, who made whoop sounds, so to speak, was said in a couple old newspaper articles. They were the moonshiners who also used tree knocks when the other members of the group that were up there, creating their moonshine, they could tap on something and they would tap back and tell them you're getting close, because they were the only ones that knew these signals. From the Prohibition and all those times like that is where some of this information comes from. So maybe there is a little bit of confusion, but then we have some of the other scenarios, the positive ones, like you mentioned. And Jacques Vallée even said that he was getting sounds of what he thought was in dead matter, dead space of electromagnetism, where portals seemed to exist and their energies showed that. He was picking up noises and certain things out of them being recorded. And he had done that type of research. Mm-hmm. So I think he is one of the ones at the cusp that really was extending knowledge to everybody, saying this is something that could be from both sides of the fence, so to speak, interdimensional, dimensional. Yeah. But when you have birds that whoop, this is what I'm saying is I'm bringing up subject matter that other people use in their minds to throw us off kilter of anything of facts. They don't take in the fact of Jeff Meldrum, the footprints. They don't, and how educated he is and his life work and what that had established.
Yeah. But, and let me just jump in there with, I had a chance to meet Dr. Meldrum down in Ocala at the Bigfoot Expo in 2023. And had a chance to briefly meet him and shake his hand and that. I mean, there were thousands of people there. So it's sort of like a meet and greet. They're selling their books, and they're interacting. But I really admire his work because he was saying during the conference that he's the last one to get a seat at the table. And that's because the Bigfooters sort of are skeptical of academics like him. And but he brings a lot to the table. He's one of the foremost primatologist. He has one of the largest collection of Bigfoot foot casts. And again, when we take a look at these foot casts, and this is evidence that you really have to take a look at and analyze. But these footprints are larger than any human being. They're larger than any bear, and they're bipedal. They walk like a man, not like an ape. So there's a lot of things that sort of indicate that this is a hominid. This isn't an ape, even though they keep on comparing Bigfoot to an ape, but it's more of a hominid, a bipedal, a human-like creature, with hominid characteristics, specifically the being able to walk on 2 feet. But he's one of the people that has really done a lot of research, not only the size of these prints, but also the stride, comparing the stride. I mean, strides that humans and bears can't make. So we have information there, information that, that is, I believe is telling, and there's proof there, but it's not good enough for the scientific community. And I say that because with the scientific process, you need to have evidence that can be looked at and replicated by other scientists. You need a hypothesis that I can put together and give to somebody like you, and you're either going to say, yeah, that works, or no, it doesn't. So we need to have that ongoing discussion and analytical process going on where we look at the evidence and and go from there. A real good example are the moon rocks. When we went up to the moon in '69, they brought down moon rocks, and what they did was they broke them up into little chunks and they distributed them to scientists around the world. And the scientists here at NASA, here in the United States, said that, well, here it has like maybe gold and silver and iridium and all these other, elements there. And they shared the moon rocks with scientists around the world so they could also do their analysis and say, yes, that's what's in these moon rocks, so that everybody was on the same page, so that there was total transparency, and so that everybody was involved in the scientific method. So we know that those rocks came from the moon. They didn't come from the earth. They wasn't fabricated. It wasn't a conspiracy theory, shot on some Hollywood back lot. And that's probably a really good example of some of the good work that the scientific community can do when they get their act together and when they're working together. So for a common cause. But
yeah, I would agree with that. But I mean, not that. And look, I don't want to be negative, but from what I found out, what I've researched in the last 4 years, when I look at how science works, it works behind grants, and there's a control mechanism behind grants, and there's things that will be said because it's controlled, or they're told to say them. And I'm not saying that that's ever happened within us talking about ufology or any of your books, but that could be a reason why last guy finishes last to be asked to sit down at a seat in many ways, because they know he's going to be objective to what science is putting across in ways versus what he's saying.
Yes. Okay. Well, let's continue with that. Like when you look at the issue of climate change or global warming, there's all kinds of studies, that are defending both sides of the argument.
Right.
And pretty much what happens is that some organization with deep pockets will go to, say, Penn State University and say, we want your researchers to do a study on climate change. Let us know if cow manure, if chickens and cows are contributing to global warming, or the fumes from cars and trucks. But here's what we want. We really hope that you're going to be able to go and disprove that and just show that global warming is cyclical. That is really, and now again, that is understated, or maybe stated under the board, or whispered in an ear, whatever. It's not written down on paper, but that's the end result of the research that they want. So here's a university getting millions of dollars in grant money to do research. Right. To pay their students and their scientists and everything else. I mean, to be able to have that that celebrated academic mission, but it's already it's ginned up. It's already rigged. I mean, they know what the end result is going to be, and that's a lot of times, unfortunately, how the game is played. So I'll give you millions of dollars to do the research. However, this is the result that I want. Do you understand me? And then we're having a little conversation. Michael, do you understand me?
Yeah.
You know, any questions about it? You know, I mean, you want
Right.
the $5 million or not? So again, these deals are done in back rooms. You know, they're not written down on paper, but I mean, it's just amazing if you take a look at some of these research studies. And then again, I'm just talking about global warming because that's an easy one. But, you know, again, the two theories, one that it's man-made and we're destroying the earth, and then the other one that it's all cyclical, that it happens in like 100-year cycle. But, you know, I'll tell you what, I mean, if something's happening now. I mean, you know, I got a place in Florida and it's supposed to, we're going to get hit by a Cat 3 hurricane tomorrow, Thursday night. So, man,
Yeah.
I'm just keeping my feet.
I'm praying for you and your property and all the good Floridians down there. I've been
Yeah.
watching that myself.
Yeah, you're from that area. You're from Orlando, right?
I travel from Pittsburgh to there unless I go up to the wood shop, which is in Armstrong County, that's what I've been doing the last several months.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, got to have fun. Got to think out of the box and do some carving and stuff. But all right. So enough of that. Me going on the sides of the fence of how, you know, why a lot of the research everybody's doing gets destroyed. But then you have hoaxers and stuff, and I know you talk about that at times and whatnot. But just what if? Going back to the old what if theory of Art Bell and all those great guys that were here before, and so many of us doing shows like this. What if there is a feral man out there that is somehow related through, you know, the ancients, that is, you know, in existence, and he's a big man with big stride and big feet, and we do know we have people with big feet. I mean, there's some people out there with size 22, and doesn't mean they're in the woods. But what if there is a life out there that's interacting somehow, and at times, I'm just saying, at times we're mistaking them because how they now live their lives, whether it's in caves or building these tree structures, or these tree structures are actually had something to do with people that were cooking corn in stills or whatever.
Yeah.
And I'm not trying to throw the idea of good information out, because I think it's impossible when you look at the fact that many stills could be out there.
Yeah.
And that many sightings are not cited, because they are. We have testimonies to them. Same within ufology. I mean, 10,000, I think, was in the documentation when I was reading it, combining 2 years together on two different types of platforms, that there were 10,000 visuals of UFOs. So, you know, you write about these things and you talk about some of these things, and that's why I bring them up.
Yeah. Well, the one thing that you said early on, you know, about a large creature existing, you know, in the woods, not being discovered. Jeff Meldrum believes that it might be Gigantopithecus, and that was a 12-foot ape. It looked like an orangutan, and it died off because it was too big. It wasn't, you know, they had their own global warming, you know, millions of years ago. And what happened was these Gigantopithecus was too big to climb up the trees to get the fruit, you know, the nutritional fruit. So what they did was they were eating the roots and the bark and the tree, and it wasn't nutritious, and they eventually died off. I mean, because of their size, they were too big. Jeff Meldrum and Grover Krantz were two people that believe that Gigantopithecus may be that related to Bigfoot, that may be out there. So they're looking at Giganto as one possibility. The other one is Neanderthal man, that some researchers believe that it never really died out and it's still there, and may be related somehow to Bigfoot. And then even with Lauren Coleman, who is one of the big three with Jeff Meldrum and Nick Redfern, Lauren Coleman believes that Gigantopithecus may actually be a giant man, a separate species from the Yeti and Bigfoot and Homo sapiens, but a giant man that's out there. So again, in my book, in The Lost Tribes of Bigfoot, I have a chapter about all of these creatures that they started to discover, like the lowland gorilla and these sharks that they thought had died off millions of years ago. So because of global warming, and listen to this, Michael, it's coming back to this. Because of global warming, there's a lot of species that are dying out. So it's pretty horrendous, no matter what's causing it. It's just a really, really sad chapter in the chapter of planet Earth. However, these scientists are going out there and they're trying to identify as many species as they can that are out there. Supposedly, we've only been able to identify something like 20% of the species, whether they're mammals, birds, insects, reptiles, whatever, 20%. So all of a sudden, they're making these incredible discoveries all over the world. And again, these are being funded. These are academic researchers that have the monies to go out there into the jungles of Borneo and New Zealand and look for these things, and they're finding them. So I mean, this is sort of like, even though we're in the midst of global warming and this horrible annihilation of our planet, and that's not being dramatic or overly dramatic. I mean, that's actually happening. But still, there's a renaissance. There's a renaissance where these academics are out there in the jungles discovering new species, and who knows? Maybe we will find a primate. Maybe we will find a hominid-like bipedal primate that, and then when we do, what do we do with it? What do we do if we find Sasquatch? I mean, let me ask you, what's your top three? What do we do with Sasquatch if we find him?
We move on to the next project because we'll have all the answers. We won't need any more hypothetical conversations, because that's where we are. We speculate, we try to articulate within them, but I think a lot of people would be lost.
Yeah, and please don't ask me the question. No, I do listen. I do these podcasts, and they ask me, "What would you do if you saw a Bigfoot?" I'd probably go crazy. I mean, what would you do if we captured one? What do you think Bigfoot does all day? I mean, I don't know. I mean, I could make something up, and I mean, I think they do what we do. They forage and procreate, and they survive and all that. They communicate, and I think they're a family unit. I think they're a family structure that they hang together. But I just think, if it's not flesh and blood, what is it? Why not an interdimensional thing where they shape shift from dimension to dimension in the blink of an eye? And people have talked about them being the bilocation, the rapid transport, where you see Bigfoot in front of you and then you see it behind you. So, or you see a Bigfoot, like in Chestnut Ridge, you see a Bigfoot and then you see orbs, you see a flying saucer.
I was just thinking to get to that with you. Is anything like that in your book? Were you able to do any connecting of the pieces there, as far as we know that there's been much talk around it, where people see one with the other, or speculate that they do?
I'll take that for 10 points. Yes. In my chapter, in my book, The Lost Tribes of Bigfoot, I have a chapter called, and let's see here, let me look it up. It is called The Bigfoot UFO Connection. And I have a whole chapter taking a look at that. And I also have it for your Western Pennsylvania folks. I have a chapter on Chestnut Ridge. So we cover pretty much all the bases. We talk about hoaxers, why people hoax, the psychology behind it. And then we talked about the Piltdown Man and also the Minnesota Iceman, two huge, legendary hoaxes that, point to Bigfoot and Sasquatch, that point to the missing link theory. And it's just amazing how that played out and why people did that and why they bought into the hoax. Everybody wanted to have either the fame and the glory, or they wanted to be the ones to find the missing link. And it's just amazing how those things played out. But if you have any interest in that, in my book, like I said, I have 3 chapters on the hoaxers, and it's pretty amazing. And again, why do that? Well, hoaxers are part of this whole Bigfoot ufology tapestry. They're there, they're part of it, just like popular culture is, and you can't get away from it. And but it's there. but I think it's up to us to determine what's truth and what's fiction. And
Yeah.
that's
You know what? I was asked once myself because I post a lot of ufology things, and that just seems to be my niche where I'm at.
Yeah, sure.
And they asked me, "You a hoaxer? You know, have you hoaxed any of your pictures?" And I guess in a way I'm guilty, but not guilty of hoaxing. But I'm guilty because I am hoaxing the picture, because what I'm trying to do once I take it, and if I'm going to share it or upload it, I'm trying to get the picture to the best point to describe what I saw in that moment, because the camera might not take everything that I'm taking, that I'm seeing in the same way.
Right.
So I'm adjusting it. I'm not trying to lie to anybody. And that's why I try to show a couple examples of how it was, because I thought I just had the other night about 2 weeks ago, something just told me go out on the front porch. I was up at the wood shop and I went outside, and I don't know why. I normally would never do that. And I went outside, I sat on the steps. I was kind of feeling awake. What made me feel suddenly like that? Still not sure. And I looked up as I'm scrolling Facebook, and
Yeah.
I'm guilty of my own sin there, because I tell everybody, if you stop scrolling, you'll never know. And I'm scrolling along, and if I wasn't doing that, I would have never looked up. And I looked up, and I'm like, oh, no sound, nothing. And it wasn't like throw a rock at it, but I mean, it was there. I watched it, I observed it, and there was something about the makeup of it that said, and no other lights but one light on how it looked, no flashing lights. I get up, I'm walking around. So I had to take the picture of it and I posted it. I let people make their own determination. But
Right.
a lot of people say you can manipulate them. I'm trying to catalog in my life my experiences. That's all I'm doing. You don't have to, agree with them. It doesn't matter to me. And you know how people will be. There's always going to be negativity or the other opinion, and that divide system, because it just exists everywhere. It doesn't matter what we talk about, what we're involved within, what works for us. And when we share it, someone will always have a different evaluation of what we shared.
Yeah.
And,
Okay.
so we stay strong, right? But if
Right.
I was ever to find Bigfoot, for whatever reason, if it happened for me, I don't know what I'd do. I couldn't even answer that.
But what a possibility. I'm looking all
Yeah.
the time, whether it's in Pennsylvania or Florida. I mean, I think maybe some people are just blessed. Some people have certain psychic abilities. Maybe they see things that the rest of us don't. Maybe entities like UFOs and Bigfoot, cryptids, ghosts, whatever, orbs. Maybe they're everywhere. Maybe they're omnipresent, but maybe only some of us have the gift and the talent to see them. I'm thinking that may be something as well. Some people have like an altered state of awareness.
Right. Max, there's a comment up here that I want to read from a Jack Warren. And I know Jack. Jack's a very intelligent person, down to earth, very family orientated and so forth. And I know he's into Bigfoot. And I know that he has had some experiences. And one of them is right here. So the reason I bring it up, in case you would want to go back for future purposes, that maybe you want to contact Jack. It says, I always tell folks when it comes to the tree breaks and bends and twists and structures, educate yourself. Well, I actually jumped on me. Hold on a second. My God, it jumped on me as I'm reading. All right, here. I've seen two at a distance many times, had them around us, and threw a rock once in my direction, 30 pounds. Found many prints. The largest print found that he found himself was 23.75 inches.
Wow.
So to me, that right there that's a Jeff Meldrum story. I mean, Jeff, if anybody has a print that big, it's going to be Jeff, or maybe Jeff doesn't. But to know, again, this is somebody in Pennsylvania, and you do a lot of your work surrounding Pennsylvania.
Yeah. Well, that's actually a J. Allen Hynek story, high strangeness. I mean, the large print, the rock, the tree structure, you throw in the smell with that and you have something there. I mean, that's like pretty definitive. So, one thing, just an eyewitness to something is just like, I mean, that could be a coincidence. It could be nothing. But when you couple that with prints, sounds, structures, etc., then you're talking about something that really has more validity. So
that's an all-at-once occurrence, which is would be pretty difficult to be able to compile that type of information through a sighting. But you're, in a way, I think what you're saying is, if you can correlate all those items together, it strengthens the case, of course. But
exactly. And again, when J. Allen Hynek, what he did was, and he was a skeptic, but he was involved with all of the government programs, so Project Grunge, Project Sign, Project Blue Book. He was a skeptic, and then towards the end, after interviewing thousands and thousands of people, he said, "Wait a minute, the scientific community, him included, is being disrespectful to these eyewitnesses that see things. I mean, we're castigating those people and challenging them and saying that they're, either needy or they're hallucinating or they're mentally ill or whatever. We're not listening to what they're saying, and we're not investigating what they're saying." But what Hynek did, other than the close encounters, the first, second, and third kind classification system with high strangeness, I mean, it's just a very simplistic term. But think about it. I mean, one thing, is one example of strangeness, but when you have two or three, that is significant. And again, that was Hynek's combined elements of high strangeness that show us that there's something here that is valid. And again, with the thing that you just told, the individual saw the structures, he saw the large print, and somebody threw something, a known thing, threw something at him. I mean, that's pretty amazing series of events and circumstances. So yeah, I think there's something there.
Yeah, well, I want, if it helps, I can always get you Jack's information. He's very easy to find, and he's a very social person. He'd be more than happy to talk to you.
I love to talk to you.
We also have some biblical references, don't we?
Oh, yeah. And my book, The Flying Saucer Esoteric, and I'll show this for your fans out there. And this came out in 2023, along with Co-Region Hoodoo, and which is Pennsylvania centric. And I mean, I really recommend this book. It's what happened was I wanted to get two books published the same year. So Co-Region Hoodoo and Flying Saucer Esoteric both came out in 2023. But I talk about in Flying Saucer Esoteric, I take a look at the people that lived before Christ, BC, and they saw things, and some of them were viewed as heretics. Some of them, like Bruno, was burned at the stake for his views. Copernicus, who said that, and the doctrine, the mandate was that because man was made in the likeness of God, everything revolved around man. So everything then, with that theory, revolved around the earth. Now, Copernicus, who was an astronomer, took a look at that and said, wait a second, we're going around the sun. So that's Copernicus's theory. I mean, he died before they could punish him, but they burnt Bruno at the stake, burned him to death at the stake. And then Galileo was put on house arrest for his beliefs because he went against this church and state. But in Flying Saucer Esoteric, I have a listing of biblical references, scripture, like Ezekiel's wheel, that everybody talks about, the wheel within a wheel. And a lot of people use that as proof that there were flying saucers back in the days, in biblical days. So anyway, it's an interesting thing. I talk in The Lost Tribes of Bigfoot, I talk about the connection between Bigfoot and flying saucers. And what's interesting is that the Holy Grail in both cases, the most important pieces of documentation in both cases were videos. The Patterson-Gimlin video from 1967, it was a 58-second video that shows Patty, a female Bigfoot creature that turned around and looked at Patterson and then walked away. 58 seconds, not a minute, not 2 minutes, not 5 minutes, but only 58 seconds. And if they were going to put over a hoax. You would think that, an elaborate hoax that with a man in a suit, that they would go and, do something that was like maybe 5 minutes long or whatever. So this is 58 seconds. The other one, and there's a parallel with that, is 2004, where Navy pilots off the coast of San Diego saw this Tic Tac, and everybody's seen that on YouTube and all the programs. But it was a Tic Tac. It was a UFO or UAP that was faster and more maneuverable than anything we had. Faster G forces. No human being could withstand that. So this UAP, the Pentagon decided to change UFOs to UAPs, unidentified aerial phenomenon. This Tic Tac hovered, zigzagged, and then it went underwater. It was underwater. So now the Pentagon says, well, we're going to change that name. So now it's UAP. It's unidentified anomalous phenomenon. So the terminology keeps on changing. But I'll tell you what, in both cases, 1967 with Bigfoot and 2004 with flying saucers, you have proof there that you can't criticize it and say that it's not proof, because even with the 2004 video, that Tic Tac video, we know that it's not any of ours. We don't think it belongs to Russia, Iran, or China. We think it's another 3% belongs someplace else, either interdimensional or extraterrestrial. We just don't know, and that's just it. We don't know what that is.
Yeah, there's a lot of speculation that surrounds that scenario, but also grows from it, that there are things taking place in the Antarctic. And when we look at some of the stories behind it, of what happened with Admiral Berg, I mean, a flying saucer came over the ship and basically used directional energy weapon and cut it in half.
Huh.
So these are things that, and I can compile and say and tell you more and more and more. But to me, it seems that there are things out there, especially when we have military people that had incidents with these UFOs and got injured from them, and now suing the United States military services.
Yeah.
And we have over 1,000 cases of that going on within the United States, still ongoing.
Yeah. Well, we know that in, let's see, it was July of 2023, David Grush, former military intelligence, was in front of the United States Congress for the UFO hearings, and he testified that he interviewed 40 government employees.
Correct.
Government employees that were retrofitting, redesigning spacecraft. That Grush claimed that he knows where the bodies are, and he knows where the saucers are. And he said that he would go and divulge that information to the right people who have the right classification. Now, when I was down in Florida, I wrote a letter to Senator Marco Rubio, who was on the UFO committee. And I said, let's keep this thing going. And I thanked him for his efforts. I said, but let's make people like David Grush show their cards. If you have the information, let's show it. And so I sent him a letter. He sent me a letter back, and I'm getting ready to send him my second letter just to see if I could keep this going. But at least I have a rapport, a little bit of communication going with Senator Marco Rubio. And so, again, let's hope that they end with, positively, because right now this disclosure that we're looking for, hasn't really happened. We had a whole lot of politicians that interviewed Grush and asked him questions, and he talked a good talk. But I think needs to be a follow-up, and we need to find something else. The other thing that happened right after that congressional UFO hearing was the Mexican Congress, and Jaime Maussan, who was a ufologist down there in Mexico and also a pretty notorious hoaxer, carted out a couple of corpses. He claims that he found them in Peru, and they looked very alien-like. I think they had maybe 3 fingers and bulbous heads and everything. And he had them in these glass containers, and the Mexican government, the scientists, wanted to have them to study them again, to use the scientific method to find out if they're real or they're hoaxes. And Jaime wouldn't play ball with him, and the Mexican scientific community really took him to task and, called him out on that. So they didn't want to be embarrassed by having this guy in front of the Mexican Congress, just showboating, these aliens that a lot of people felt were hoaxes. And Jaime Maussan has been involved in numerous hoaxes over the decades. So he's really not one to be, carrying the torch of truth, with ufology. So.
Well, then we might as well jump down Stephen Greer's throat. We might as well jump. I mean, look, Bob Lazar's throat. And, like Bob Lazar said, the one that he worked on was actually from an ancient archaeological find.
Yeah.
Now, whether that's true or false, I don't know. But this is what the man states. And he never believed. And when I talked to Jim Goodall, and we had some great conversations together, who was really good friends with Bob, when they first met, he says, "Can you believe John Lear? That he believes in this stuff?" This is prior to him getting the job at Area 51. He's just like, but the tune changed once he got in there, and once he started into the programs and so forth. So that's the hardball effect of what we go through. Of why we try to call out the things, at least me, respectfully in some way. If we're going to analyze it, let's not be objective, and let's have a great discussion.
Yeah. And with Lazar, he tells a great story, and there's some things of interest there. But when you check his background, like he said, he was a graduate of MIT. Not true. He talked about working for certain government agencies. Not true. When you look at
I would beg to differ with you there, because Jim Goodall had his W-2 form.
Okay.
So right there, that would squash everything that has to do with anything there, and why the government and why the guy from Mexico probably wouldn't give that specimen to his own government, because of what they can do and how they can remove you from anything they want to remove you from. If they can remove a president, they can and come after him. We have to theoretically look what is the power really capable of? And where and how do we analyze things because of that?
Mm-hmm.
But I can only tell you the truth in the conversation. I would ask you to refer back even to the shows, 2 of them that I did with Jim Goodall, who blew up and put Area 51 on the map with John Lear. And I actually wrote to John Lear and got writings back from him, even through his darkest, sickest times.
Yeah.
God bless his soul, because he knew a lot. And he, in ways and whispers, actually shared to me some things the same way Jim did. But Jim put more clarity on it because they spent time together.
Mm-hmm.
They were both fascinated with pictures and planes. And how does a guy with such a background and his family, creating the Lear jet and everything else, come up with something who was into politics and very strong in his positions, just falter without somebody's hand playing a party to it?
Yeah. Well, we don't know. There's, look at the Ultra MK with the CIA LSD experiments, that they dosed their scientists.
Right.
With LSD and didn't tell them, and stuff like that. Things happen. So What
about the salts? I think you talked about that once, about the salts, bathing salts and so forth, and how they change your body and things like that, without taking a harsh chemical drug, but a chemical drug in fact.
Well, if you're talking about bath salts, bath salts were a stimulant hallucinogen that promised you euphoria, but a lot of times people that took them just became psychotic. And even in Western Pennsylvania, in Cook Forest, there were a couple of law enforcement officers that injected bath salts, went into the Cook Forest, and you get super overheated, and they found them dead of hypothermia. They were naked. They were walking around naked, hallucinating, psychotic, and then they found them dead. Interesting thing, the same exact thing happened out here in Western Pennsylvania, in my neck of the woods, and it was a law enforcement guy that did bath salts, and they found him in the water reservoir. And again, it was the same thing, naked and dead, hypothermia. So again, he was doing bath salts. They found the stuff in his truck, but pretty amazing. 3 law enforcement officers in opposite sides of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania dead allegedly from hypothermia from doing bath salts, but who knows? Who knows what really happened?
Yeah, I would agree. I would agree that the system does work that way. And all we can do is put up the information as we learn it the best we can. And, that's what you do with your books. You're not trying to create an abnormal way of thinking out there. You're trying to put the facts down from the people that have spoken about things. And, you're directing them through your fingers and your keyboards into the words for people to learn more and to, be able to analyze things themselves for what they learn from what they can accept from a book.
Yeah, I'll tell you one thing that really happened that was just like, we were in Baltimore this weekend for the Fort Fest, and this is a festival honoring the works of Charles Fort, F-O-R-T, who was from New York, and he went around the world and he cataloged things like spontaneous human combustion, chunks of meat that sorry about that.
Oh, that's okay.
Okay.
Life works that way.
Okay, sorry. Chunks of meat that would fall down, or big pieces of ice that would fall down in the desert. Weird stuff. So all this weird paranormal stuff we call Forteana. So anyway, there was a wonderful conference there. Larry Arnold from the Harrisburg area. He is a noted scholar on spontaneous human combustion. And if you want him on your show, I could certainly give you his contact information. But anyway, I presented on the Lost Tribes of Bigfoot. But what happened was I was contacted by the Virginia, Maryland, and Washington, D.C. MUFON directors to go and do conferences, video Zoom conferences with their people. So we're setting that up. And that was just really just a nice thing so that I can go and further the discussion and talk about, and I like the word flying saucers rather than UAPs, not because I'm old fashioned, but because I just like the way it sounds. So, but anyway, this is going to be just great to be able to interact with people from, 2 states plus the District of Columbia, and to discuss, UFOs and UAPs, and to see what's happening, in their states. And every now and then somebody comes up with something that is really outstanding, and they just can't figure it out, but it has all those elements of high strangeness. So I'm looking forward to having that conversation in the near future with MUFON. So
yeah, I think I'm gonna have to start traveling a little bit and become the guy in the front row, because I've been doing this a long time, and I have nothing but respect for people. But I'm not looking to get invited on. But when I extend an invitation out, I don't really ever get a response back, and that's okay.
Yeah,
it's okay. And I've talked to them all, Stan Gordon, and I wrote to them all.
In Western Pennsylvania, with a lot of the Bigfoot expos, it seems to be Stan Gordon, Eric Altman, Ron Murphy, maybe Kevin Paul, those 3 or 4. I mean, they tend to be everywhere. And so, I know there's other, people that are into the paranormal and into Sasquatchery. So I don't know. I mean, these guys are, sort of, putting together all these expos. I'm going to be on, let me see, it's going to be October the 5th. I'm going to be in Columbia, Pennsylvania at the Alba Witch Festival. So we're going to have a booth there. We're going to be displaying the Lost Tribes of Bigfoot, and hoping to meet a lot of people. But Michael, if you're in the area, please stop by. I mean, I think there's going to be a lot of people there. It's a huge thing. And if your listeners are close to Lancaster, Pennsylvania, please check out the Alba Witch Festival. It's a paranormal festival. It's going to be Saturday, October the 5th. It's all day. And there's going to be a ton of people, a ton of Bigfoot researchers and it should be really phenomenal. So we're really looking forward to it, and and hopefully next year we could be a guest speaker there. But anyway, that's we're
I vote.
yeah, for sure.
So
So
I mean, because you deliver the content the best you can as how you learn it, and in a good way. I really mean that. That's why we've had 3 or 4 shows together already. And yeah, just for a quick response to you, Jack, I've done shows with John, and John's a great guy. He is. John's a great guy. He has a lot to say.
and that's John.
Ventura.
Okay.
He's been on Hangar One and some of those things, which I think is where the catalog name came for your book.
Yeah, well, Hangar One is the publisher for Lost Tribes of Bigfoot. And one thing I just wanted to show your readers, which is pretty cool, is if I could find it, is throughout the book, they have these QR codes. And what you do is you take your phone, and let me find one. And okay, it's right. Hang on, it's right here. And you take your phone and you point it at the QR code, and then it'll take you to a video of me. Okay, here's one. Okay, good. Now I find it. So there's the QR code. So you just hit that with your phone's camera, and there'll be a little triangle there. Rectangle, and you hit that, and then there'll be a little 3-4 minute video of me doing a synopsis of that chapter. So they have, I think, 8 of them, 10 of them in the book, but it's a really neat kind of technology. Yeah, and it's sort of like repurposing an older technology, i.e. QR codes, into something that's new and innovative. So I like what Hangar One's doing. I mean, I'm really enjoying working with Doug and Alex Hychek, from Hangar One. I mean, they're great people, and they're the ones that do Monster Quest. So I'm hoping to be a guest on Monster Quest in the real near future. So
yeah, I'm aware of his work. I wrote to him. We've had words a couple times back and forth. Nice guy, trying to be productive. I sent him some stories and people from shows that I did with them, where I gave the platform that I utilize here for anybody to have a voice that has a story. And they were fascinated with some of them. And I know they brought them in, flew some people down. They, did some regressions and different types of scenarios. Yeah. So I'm hoping to see something come out of all that at the end of the day for those guys somehow. Mm-hmm. But they're on the right track. They're motivating people to move forward in good ways and get rid of the riffraff along the way. Yeah, the hoaxes, and stuff.
Yeah, well, Hangar One's into UFOs and Bigfoot, cryptids, and I was looking just the other day. I was looking on Amazon at all the books about Bigfoot. It's just amazing how many books are out there. But if any of your viewers are into cryptids and and Bigfoot and Sasquatch, I mean, please take a look at the Lost Tribes of Bigfoot. I think
we're in 150 of those groups right now, live.
Say that again.
We're in 150 of those groups live right now.
Oh, wonderful. Yeah. And if they purchase the book, please do a review on Amazon.com. I mean, it really helps us struggling authors.
Yeah. A lot of people don't realize it's not, you may put out a book, but a lot of people don't sell a great number of books, but because of the information and content that's in it, because of where we are and how the interest has risen so highly, you get invited to do things every once in a while, and that becomes a productivity of how you exist as well, and it's necessary, and in some ways. But I also see that you're out there doing freebie work too. You're not one of the ones, but you are telling people, come on out, visit us, check me out. I'll be speaking. It's no charge to get in, and that I grace you for with praise, because honestly, every now and then the public needs a little bit of relief.
Yeah. John Muir, the naturalist, he formed the Audubon Society, and he would go out there in the woods, just like the Sasquatchers and that. But he would say that I'd rather be a tramp than a millionaire. In other words, he'd rather be out there in the woods just tramping around than be a millionaire. And John Muir really just has a lot in common with these guys that go out there looking for Bigfoot. I mean, they just, I think need to talk about the environment. They need to talk about preserving the environment, just like Sasquatch is believed to have done or represents in British Columbia with the native peoples up there, the Pacific Coast people. So, Sasquatch seems to be a representative of preserving the environment and maintaining it. And, I talked a lot about global warming and all that. Well, it's the same thing, respect Mother Earth, respect the ecosystem, leave something for our kids and their kids. And, we really got to do something. When you take a look at some of these whales and mammals in the ocean that are they're dying because their bellies are filled of plastic. That has to piss us off. We should be angry, and it shouldn't just be the millennials or Generation Z. It should be all of us that are livid and pissed off at, the corporations around the world, and not just here in America, but in China and Japan and every other place that are just polluting the earth. I mean, I'm angry. I wish I could do something about it.
I as well. I'm with you. And before you go, because I know we have limited time, I do want to bring one final thing up with you. I think it's important in a way when we look into national parks and we look at the places where, families are allowed to live on it till the last day of the 100th year. And no longer can it be a place for anybody to reside in anymore. Do you think that there are, how in your mind, do you think that there are reasons that they don't want people interacting, no trespassing, restriction, all these types of things? Does anything in great numbers come out in your book that way that reflects to any of these areas of places of why we can't live there, and eminent domain taking over? And Alaska is one of the big ones. Hawaii never comes up because it's one of the most limited sites of sightings, except for ufology.
Yeah. Well, first of all, we've had Bigfoot sightings in every state except Hawaii, so we don't have that. But when you take a look at why would the government go and lock up, acres and acres of wilderness, and well, for a whole bunch of reasons, not just one, but I mean, military purposes, military experiments, clandestine military experiments. Like, remember how they nuked all those sheep out in, what was it, Montana or Wyoming, decades ago. They killed them, and some of that was in Close Encounters of the Third Kind. But, they made a mistake and then they paid for it. They admitted it. But I think there's a lot of things going on that they don't want us to know. It could be land rights, mineral rights. It could be military experiments. It could be UFOs. It could be Area 51 and Roswell and all that. We don't know because they're not telling us. And the people that are talking about it are either hoaxers and liars, or else they know something that we don't know, and they're risking their lives telling us about it. So, I don't know, but but that's a great question. The one I get all the time is, what would you do if you saw Bigfoot? So I don't know. So anyway.
Well, I totally get it. And I don't know either. I really don't. But when I had my encounter with the UFO, where I could have threw a rock over my head, after the moment set in, the chills went up on the back of my neck. Really, the hairs on your arms raise up a little bit. And I was in that moment. I really was in that moment of like, what the hell did I get myself into?
Yeah,
those are the most famous words I could put to it that I've used over and over in telling people about it. There is something that comes over, I think, almost everybody, or the incident happens so fast, maybe their body doesn't have the time to react, where mine lasted long enough where I had the time for reaction.
Yeah. Yeah, good point. we're all different, you know, we're all different. And a lot of times it's that visceral thing, that kick in the guts, you know, you feel it in your stomach first before you even think about it. So, yeah, pretty amazing.
So where are you going to be again? You started to tell me before we went live. Let's hit some of the things that are going on in the upcoming month that you got going on.
Yeah, well, the big one will be October the 5th. It's going to be Saturday, October the 5th. We're going to be in Columbia, Pennsylvania, which is just outside of Lancaster. And that's going to be the big one. That's the Albert Witch Festival. A lot of the Western Pennsylvania Bigfoot guys like Stan Gordon and Eric Altman and Ron Murphy are going to be there, but they're going to be other Bigfoot guys too as well. Tim Renner, you know, a bunch of them. I think Joshua Kutchin. We'll be there. I have a stand. We're going to be, displaying our book, The Lost Tribes of Bigfoot, and this will be pretty big. This is going to be my audience. So we've already had some media people reaching out, you know, to help promote with this event that we're going to be there. So I'm excited. But if your listeners could make it there, that'll be fine. And then also, if they want to contact me, I'm at www.maximfurek.com. That's my website. And the books are available on Amazon.com. Feel free to check out all of my books, including Co-Region Hoodoo, and which is really the perfect book for the Halloween season. So
I hear you.
Yeah.
And you know what? On that day, you're going to be there's another element of the paranormal. I got some mail from him today, actually. David Schrader, he's going to be live doing some things on the 4th and 5th. So I hope there's an equal fairness and both platforms fill up because everybody needs a little bit. Yeah. But I'll do the best I can. If you send me something, I'll get that posted on my America Disclosing page and the cryptids compared. God, I don't even know. I got so many. Anyway, I'll get out what I can get shared for you that way. And I want to thank you for coming on. You're a rock star as always. Thanks for all the work you're doing. I'm glad to see that you're going forth in the industry, you know, being called upon. You deserve that. And you never know who might show up in the front row. And if I do, I'll bring my T-shirts that say National Sightings Registry. There is an air here for you. Call in. That's me. And we have over 300 accounts in Pennsylvania in 2 years. And I'm sorry that I can't share them with the others, but they don't quite get me, I guess. I don't know. But I have over 300 that came in 2 years.
Fantastic. Yeah. Well, you're doing the hard work and the heavy lifting, and look where it's getting you. So, I mean, a little bit. But, you know, you probably didn't even know I was doing it. We got to look at each other more. We have to take those times. We owe that in friendship. But thank you for coming on. I appreciate everything. Everyone, Maxim Furek, thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Michael.
Everybody out there, you've been watching America Disclosure Uncensored. And my guest tonight was Maximum, and fascinating individual. I hope you enjoyed the content of the show. We probably didn't touch on enough of anything, but he's a master of 3 books. And trying to touch base on them all, giving him respect, it's a little difficult sometimes. If you have any questions he didn't answer, any information you'd like me to get back to him that he may be able to use in some of his upcoming books, or to Carter Bashar, who writes a lot in similar ways, who does documentations, I will be glad to share out your information. Please get them to me. These people are an open book when it comes to the information. They accept it from anybody. No holds barred there. So thanks again. And you guys have a great night. Upcoming soon, some more spectacular stuff with some more spectacular guests. It's going to be a great fall kickoff. I promise. You all have a great night. Thank you so much.